it's Metal Gen, and welcome to the T54e1 review, the American Tier 9 auto-loader medium tank. Barely can call this a medium tank though. First of all, let's look into the armor as we always do. What you'll find here is a random collection of plates at random thicknesses, stripped in random places. I mean, when you shoot this tank, if you don't have good accuracy, the chances of you penning it is around, I would say, 60% if you shoot it in the turret, and the chances of bouncing is around 40. With 127 being the thickest armor on this tank, you would wonder why, but that's because of how ridiculous the angling is on this tank. There's so many auto bounce zones on this thing, and they're really close to the zones you want to shoot, so you really have quite a bit of chance to bounce off. As you can see, there's plenty of auto bounces. There's some parts where the armor is like 260 as well. So, random as fuck. What I can recommend is go either for the turret ring, go either for the flat parts if it's like too hot down to shoot the turret ring. Go for the gun if you don't want to take a lot of chances trying to get the corners and you can't be bothered to aim, then probably the gun is the best bet. And if you can see the hull, go for the hull. It's highly likely that you'll have more penetration than ever needed to pen this hull. It is like square shaped, so you can't angle it. And if you do, then just another zone is gonna uncover that is gonna be super easy to pen. So no angling in this tank. And side armor is actually, there's two zones of side armor, really weird, but it's not gonna do you any good as long as you're not over angling it. But even then, as you can see, you really need to keep this flat, and then your frontal plate is shit anyways. So there's no real angling for it. This is made out of paper just as much as the 5120 is. There's just a bit more chances of bouncing just because of how the armor is shaped. When it comes to the substats, we're comparing it to the 5120 because this has nothing in common with the Lorraine apart from the autoloader. But when we compare these two, this thing actually has worse power to weight ratio than the French Tier 9 Heavy. It has better soft stats though, so the tanks are reasonably similar when it comes to mobility. Worse top speed limit on this, the backwards they go the same. And when it comes to the gun stats, they are actually quite similar as you can see. That being said, I'm pretty sure we're ready to go to the replay after we look at the gun depression. 8 to the front, and it is way less to the back, which is 5. And 13 gun elevation, which is not horrible comparing it to the 5120. That being said, now we're definitely ready to go to the replay. So here's the game, playing on Live Oaks. Really good matchmaking, as you probably have noticed already. But then again, this tank really needs that good matchmaking. We were gonna talk about the stats and you'll see why, but this tank performs like 3 times better in matchmaking like this than it will do in a heavy tier 10 game. So first of all, as always, let's look into the stats. Again, we'll mostly be comparing this to the 5120. So here we go, 1750 hit points, same as on the 5120. 43 kilometer speed limit forwards, which is way worse than on 5120. 20 backwards, which is really good. Engine power 810 horsepower, pretty damn bad and gives it a 14.88 power to weight, which is like a sluggish medium tank standards or mobile heavy tank standards. It's way below the 5120, but as we saw, the terrain resistance evens that out. Traverse speed 46, which makes this pretty good when it comes to the traversing things. And when we come to the gun, it has a 4-round autoloader, same as on the 5120. The reload between the shots is 2.22 seconds, and the DPM on this is higher, barely higher than on the 5120. The reload between magazines is pretty much the same. On this is 36 seconds with stock values, on the 5120 is 35. You'll get it down to like 32, 33 seconds, maybe 34, something like that. Gun does 390 damage per shot, penetration 210 millimeters, and accuracy 0.4 and aiming time 2.9. The easiest way to compare the 5120 and the E1 when it comes to the potential in their autoloaders, the 5120 is like a bolt action rifle that fires a reasonably accurate shot, but it needs a it's time to aim. Well, this thing is pretty much spray and pray pump action shotgun, which is obviously shooting slugs because, well, the tanks. I mean, this tanks, you saw how it just performed this gun. I mean, the shots were not fully aimed, but then again, this tank actually unloads faster than it aims, so you can't really afford that full aiming time as long as you don't want to just sit there and wait. I actually could have sat there and wait, and now if you see this, I'm actually not horribly tunnel visioning. In my eyes, it is worth it to take out the tier 9 medium tank, even if it means that I'm gonna take around 900 damage doing so from the T59. The best feature about this tank is being able to do 1560 damage in a matter of 4 seconds. You should always take a chance when you have it. Obviously, it wasn't the greatest trade. I would rather that T69 being any other tier 8, but taking out one of their 2 tier 9s for taking 900 health to only me is kind of worth it in my book, so I went for it. And I lost all that 900 health, sadly. The 69 got shot in the face, though, as well, so it wasn't all in vain. When it comes to the equipment you want to use on this tank, you can't mount a rammer, so the equipment choices are gonna differ from the usual medium tank standards. So vert stabs, coated optics, and gun length drive. You can switch either the gun length drive or the vert stabs for the ventilation. But I would keep it that way because the aiming time is kind of a bit more important than the reload between the magazines. And when it comes to crew skills, 6th sense repair, smooth red snapshot, situational awareness, recon, pretty much the usual stuff as always. The most important thing when you play this tank is to make sure that your shots will be able to do damage. Pick your fights. When you're in heavy tier 10 games, don't go fighting E100s frontally. Try to find targets you can actually pen and do damage reliably, or just try to flank the E100s, because 210 penetration, look in what way you want, is not going to be enough. And loading golden autoloader, especially the one with 30-second reload, is usually going to be a bad idea, and you will end up shooting tanks you will be able to pen with AP way more often than you think, and the gold is just gonna be wasted. So I don't even carry a single gold when I'm in this tank, and I don't really want to start either. Obviously, one clip of APCR ammo won't do you any harm either, since the reload is 30 seconds. You can load it in like end game situations if you don't have the nerve to shoot AP, but as long as you make your shots count, this gun is reasonably good. And now, here I make my first big mistake in this game. I don't go for reload here. The thing about any autoloader really in this game, when you start moving, you always should go for a reload. And I started moving, and the thing is, this tank is slow, and I probably would have been halfway done to my reload at this point, and I would be able to kill that IS easily with that one magazine. Instead, I'm approaching him with 2 shots, and clearly I won't be able to shoot him. And if the E1 and the Löwe has approached this side, it's unlikely that they will, since we still have people in the cap circle, but if they did, this would have been a really bad move, and I only hit one of the 2 shots, which makes this play even worse. And now, just retreating. It was a really big mistake not to reload there. If I had all my mag, I obviously would have killed him even with that one miss, most likely. Well, even if I missed the one, maybe he still would have lived. But now going for a reload anyways. This tank is a nightmare for all the Frenchies and all the lightly armored tanks, Leopards and all that, because the amount of damage this thing can dish out in 6 seconds is ridiculous. It's pretty much a 57 heavy when it comes to shooting lightweight targets, but the thing is, when you drive something like an E75 and these guys are not shooting APCR, you don't really have to worry as much if your front is facing the gun of the T54e1, because 210 penetration is not really the threat you are afraid of when you play something like the E75 SD1 or something like that. While the SD1 actually has a lower plate weak enough for this gun to pen frontally, the E75 doesn't really have anything that this gun can do without shooting gold at it, really, unless you're being flanked. However, the T54e1 is slow, as you can see. It is not very maneuverable. Well, traverse is good, but that doesn't really help. You're not gonna circle anything with this thing unless they're tracked and their mouse. But You have to pick your battles. That's the most important thing in this tank. You don't want to pick battles where you are being targeted by more than one tank at the time. You never want to pick battles where you are facing a super heavy or heavy you are not really sure you can pen frontally. And you never want to pick battles where you need to use gun elevation. Even though this tank has more than the 5120, it's still not very good, to say the least. And one thing we're gonna learn at the end of this replay, you never want to shoot on the move in this tank. When it comes to the stock grind, really bad one. You don't have to research your turn, which is the nice thing, but the T69 gun, we're on the low end of penetration, on the way low end of the penetration at tier 8, and on tier 9 it doesn't get better, so quite a bit of heat might be required if you want to remain even slightly competitive with the stock gun here. And if obviously spamming gold is not your thing, then you're gonna struggle to do anything really with that other gun. You'll have to make even more emphasis on flanking, which is not really a bad thing. You'll learn to play it properly and you won't be hugely disappointed when you find out that this gun doesn't really have all that much penetration for tier 9 either. Another thing, I would highly advise you to stay away from sniping with this tank. The gun is just not suited for it. You can obviously, it's not like the gun is horribly bad. I mean, the 0.4 accuracy is not really helping you much, but the thing about this thing, the main strength of the T54e1 is the ability to do all the damage in 6 seconds. And if you want to put accurate fire at range, you need to take way more than that. You will need to probably even take more time than on the 5120, which is not really a great thing if you think about it. And with a lack of accuracy and the horrible penetration, it's highly likely that even your fully aimed shots will miss. And here's what we were saying before, no shooting on the move. Horrible clip for me, missed 3, and the 4th one will bounce. And now we'll both drive around here like idiots because both of us are reloading. But hey, I still have friends left, but he doesn't, so he's dead. So here's the end play. Despite the horrible clip at the start and at the end of the game, 6,241 damage done, 261 assisted, ace tanker, 4,196 experience earned, top gun, high caliber. I have to say big thanks to the matchmaking for this game. Obviously being one of the 2 top tiers is a great thing to begin with, but that's how this tank works. It's really good at stumping lower tiers. And when it comes down to playing tier 10 games in this thing, it has the potential, but it is way harder to use in those kind of circumstances. To sum it up, I would pick the 5120 over this tank any time of the day just because it's more reliable when it comes to doing damage, but this is by no means bad tank. It's a bit more situational in my opinion though. Hope you guys enjoyed this review and I will see you on the next one.